The human research station floated above a distant blue planet, its long silver wings catching the light of the nearby star. Inside the station, people worked day and night to study alien technology and culture. Among them was a young technician named Aaron. He was not a soldier or a leader. He was simply a repair worker, someone who kept the machines running so that others could do their great work. Yet fate had a different plan for him. On that day, Aaron had been assigned to work inside the central chamber. The chamber was where humans and their alien allies gathered to exchange ideas. The walls were high and smooth, covered with glowing panels that displayed data from both species. Dozens of people moved about, some in dark uniforms, others in flowing alien robes. Aaron felt a little nervous because he rarely worked in such an important place. Usually, he repaired smaller systems in the lower decks. As he carried his tools, he noticed Myra. She was an envoy from the alien delegation. Myra had tall, graceful features and a quiet presence that made people pause when she walked by. Her skin had a soft shimmer, and her eyes reflected light like still water. Unlike other envoys who kept their distance, Myra often stood close to humans, watching their work with sharp curiosity. Aaron had seen her many times before, but never this close. The console near the meeting table had been acting strangely, and Aaron had been called to fix it. He knelt down, removed a panel, and began tightening the wires. Sweat formed on his forehead because the chamber lights were stronger than those in the lower decks. The warmth pressed against his skin, and he tugged at his collar while working. Myra stood just a few steps away, watching him closely. Her eyes followed each motion as if trying to understand what he was doing. Aaron felt the weight of her gaze, but he kept his focus on the tools. A group of human officers and alien delegates were gathered nearby, discussing cultural agreements. Their voices were calm, yet every now and then the chamber fell into silence when someone waited for a translation. Aaron did not mean to speak aloud. He only wanted to mutter to himself, as he often did while working. But the heat of the lights and the nervousness of being watched made him lose control for a moment. He wiped his forehead, looked up at Myra, and said the words without thinking. "You look hot." The chamber went quiet. The human officers stopped their discussion. The alien delegates froze, their bright eyes narrowing in confusion. Aaron's heart dropped into his stomach. He realized at once what he had said. He had meant to say that she looked uncomfortable under the lights, the way he felt. But the words had come out in a way that meant something entirely different. Myra tilted her head slightly. She did not blink. Her eyes locked onto him, and Aaron felt as if the whole station had turned to watch. His hands trembled as he quickly set down his tool. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The silence grew heavy, pressing down on him more than the heat ever had. One of the human officers coughed awkwardly, trying to move the conversation forward. But the moment had already stretched too far. Myra stepped closer to Aaron. Her footsteps were soft, yet each one echoed in his ears. She stopped just an arm's length away, her gaze still fixed on him. Aaron wanted to explain, to say that it was a mistake, but his voice refused to rise. He thought about the rules of the station. Humans were told to show respect to the alien envoys at all times. A wrong word could ruin months of fragile diplomacy. He wondered if he had just ended the trust between their people with a single slip. Then Myra spoke. Her voice was calm, carrying a tone that seemed both curious and strong. "Is this how humans speak to one another?" she asked. The question made the humans in the chamber shift uncomfortably. Some looked down at their boots. Others glanced at Aaron with wide eyes, waiting to see what he would say. Aaron's throat felt dry, and his mind raced. He knew she was not angry, at least not yet, but she was demanding an answer. Yes, he finally whispered. I did not mean it like that. I was only saying the lights make it hot in here. Myra did not move for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, her lips curved into the smallest of smiles. It was not the smile of mockery, but one of interest. She gave a short nod, then turned her gaze toward the other aliens. Humans speak with fire, she said, her voice carrying across the chamber. The delegates exchanged looks, whispering in low tones. Some of them seemed confused, others amused. The human officers relaxed only a little, though their eyes still darted nervously toward Aaron. Aaron felt his cheeks burn. He wanted nothing more than to crawl back into the console and disappear. Yet Myra's reaction was not what he had expected. He thought she would be offended, perhaps even demand punishment. Instead, she had turned his mistake into something else, something larger. When the meeting ended, Myra did not leave with the other envoys. She remained in the chamber, standing close to the console where Aaron was still working. The officers left him alone, perhaps too embarrassed to speak. Aaron kept his eyes on the wires, though he could feel Myra's presence beside him. You spoke quickly, she said at last, her tone gentle. You did not plan those words. Aaron nodded without lifting his head. It was a mistake. I am sorry. Myra leaned slightly closer. Among my people, to call someone hot is to see their inner fire. It is a mark of strength. Do humans use it the same way? Aaron blinked, then looked at her for the first time since the moment had passed. Her expression was not angry. It was curious, almost eager. He swallowed, then gave a small laugh, nervous but real. Not exactly. It means something different for us. But maybe not so different from what you said. Myra studied him with quiet thought. Then she nodded once more. I like honest mistakes, she said softly. Before Aaron could reply, she turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving him alone with the silent hum of the machines. Aaron sat back on his heels, unsure what had just happened. He had spoken without thinking, and instead of ruin, something unexpected had begun. He did not yet know it, but those few words would change everything for humans and aliens alike. The next morning on the research station began like any other. The lights slowly brightened to mark the cycle of day, and the halls filled with the sound of footsteps, voices, and machines. Aaron tried to act normal, but inside he carried a storm of thoughts. He kept replaying the moment from the chamber. His careless words, the silence, Myra's bold response. He could not understand why she had not been offended. Instead, she had called his words fire and strength. Aaron wanted to forget, but whispers spread quickly on a station where humans and aliens lived side by side. As he walked through the narrow halls carrying his toolkit, he noticed groups of people glance at him and then lower their voices. Some humans smirked, while others shook their heads. A pair of alien envoys stared at him longer than usual, their expressions unreadable. Aaron felt his stomach tighten. He was not used to attention, and now he seemed to have too much of it. At lunch, his friend Ryan joined him in the mess hall. Ryan worked as a systems operator and had a habit of knowing every rumor before anyone else. He sat down across from Aaron with a grin. You really did it this time, Ryan said. Aaron sighed. I did not mean it. It just slipped out. Everyone knows, Ryan replied, leaning forward. They say the envoy smiled at you. Some think it means she respects you. Others think it means she is testing you. Either way, people are talking. You should be careful. Aaron pushed his tray aside. He did not feel hungry anymore. I only want to do my work. I am not trying to be part of their politics. Ryan shrugged. Maybe you do not have a choice. Sometimes history chooses people. And maybe history chose you. The words made Aaron uneasy. He was not a leader or a negotiator. He was only a technician. He fixed machines. That was all. Later that day, Aaron returned to the central chamber to check the console again. This time, the chamber was quiet. The envoys were gone, and only a few human officers stood near the far wall. Aaron was glad for the peace. He knelt by the console, set down his tools, and focused on the wires. A soft voice interrupted him. Do humans always speak so directly? Aaron looked up sharply. Myra was standing nearby, her calm eyes watching him again. She wore the same flowing robe, its fabric shifting with faint colors under the light. Aaron swallowed and quickly stood. No, he said. Not always. Many times we are careful with words. Yesterday was a mistake. I did not mean to say it like that. Myra stepped closer, her expression curious. Why call it a mistake if it carried meaning? You said something that made everyone listen. Few humans have done that. Aaron rubbed the back of his neck. Because it sounded wrong in our language. Among humans, calling someone hot is usually about appearance. It can be misunderstood. Myra tilted her head. And yet you spoke with honesty. My people value honesty above clever words. When you said it, I heard fire in your voice. It was bold. Aaron blinked. Her boldness surprised him again. She did not act insulted or distant. Instead, she seemed almost pleased. He felt his face grow warm. I did not plan it. I am not bold. I was nervous. Myra gave a small smile. Nervous fire is still fire. The officers across the chamber pretended not to listen, but Aaron could feel their eyes. He wished Myra would speak more quietly, but her words carried like steady music. She asked, do humans often say such things to each other? Aaron hesitated. He thought carefully. Yes. Sometimes friends say it as a joke. Sometimes people say it to show they like someone. But it is not usually spoken in a meeting hall with many eyes watching. Myra nodded slowly, as if storing every detail. Interesting. Among my people, compliments are given only when one wishes to show trust. A careless word can be an insult. But an open word can build a bond. Perhaps your mistake was not a mistake at all. Aaron lowered his eyes. I am not sure the others see it that way. Let them wonder, Myra said simply. I prefer honesty. For a moment, they stood in silence. Aaron felt something unusual in her presence. She was not only an envoy. She was a bridge between two worlds. And somehow, by accident, he had stepped onto that bridge with her. When Myra finally turned to leave, she paused. Tell me more of your human ways. I wish to learn how you speak. I will meet you again. Then she walked away, her robe shifting like flowing water. Aaron remained frozen, his tools still in hand. He realized she had chosen him for something greater than repairs. She wanted him to teach her. That night, Aaron lay awake in his small cabin. The low hum of the station filled the air. He stared at the ceiling, replaying her words again and again. She wanted to learn from him. Out of all the humans on the station, she had chosen him, a simple technician. He wondered what that meant. He wondered what the officers would think if they found out. He wondered what her people would think. Yet deep inside, beneath the fear and doubt, he felt a spark of pride. Maybe Ryan was right. Maybe history sometimes chose people who never asked for it. Aaron closed his eyes and tried to rest, but sleep did not come quickly. He felt that something had begun, something larger than himself. A single careless word had set it in motion, and Myra's bold response had opened a path that neither of them could ignore. The station outside moved silently through the stars, carrying humans and aliens together into a future that was slowly being rewritten. The days on the research station passed with steady rhythm. Machines hummed, doors slid open and shut, voices echoed in long metal corridors. Aaron continued with his work as a technician, but something inside him had shifted. Each time he repaired a panel or replaced a circuit, he found his thoughts wandering back to Myra. He remembered her calm eyes, her bold smile, and the way she had asked him to teach her human ways. It was not long before she returned. One evening, while Aaron worked alone in the data storage room, he heard the soft sound of the door opening. He looked up and saw Myra standing there, her robe flowing gently around her tall frame. The room was filled with rows of glowing screens, and the light reflected on her face like water on stone. "You said you would tell me more," Myra began. Her voice carried no demand, only quiet expectation. Aaron stood quickly and nodded. "Yes. I remember. You want to learn how humans speak." Myra stepped closer, her eyes moving across the rows of screens before resting on him again. "Words are more than sounds. They shape trust. I wish to understand yours." Aaron swallowed, unsure where to begin. He was no teacher. He had no training in diplomacy. Yet something in her steady gaze gave him courage. He motioned toward a chair. "Sit, and I will try to explain." She sat gracefully, folding her hands on her lap. Aaron sat across from her, his palms resting on his knees. For a moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the hum of the machines. "Among humans," Aaron began slowly, "we use words in many ways. Sometimes we speak directly, to show truth. Other times we speak carefully, to hide our feelings. And sometimes we use words as jokes, to make others laugh." Myra listened without blinking. "A joke is false speech, yet you value it?" Aaron shook his head. "Not false, but playful. A joke is when we say something that is not fully true, but it makes people smile. It brings comfort." She tilted her head. "So honesty is not always your goal?" Aaron hesitated. "Honesty is important, but so is kindness. Sometimes the truth is heavy. A gentle word, even if not exact, can help someone carry it." Myra's eyes narrowed slightly as if weighing the thought. Then she leaned forward. "Show me. Speak a human joke." Aaron froze. He had not expected that. He searched his mind, and after a long pause, he spoke. "Why did the machine refuse to work?" "Because it needed a break." Myra stared at him. Aaron felt heat rise to his face. He regretted the words, thinking she would not understand. But then, slowly, Myra gave a small laugh. It was soft, almost like music, yet it carried through the room. "I see," she said. "It is not about truth, but about rhythm. Words that turn in an unexpected way." Aaron smiled with relief. "Yes. That is what we call humor. For a while they sat together, speaking of words, tones, and meanings. Myra asked endless questions. She wanted to know why humans sometimes spoke in praise and other times in insult, why they used the same word in many different ways, and why they spoke without saying what they truly felt. Aaron answered as best he could. At times he struggled to explain, but Myra never lost patience. She studied each word as if it were a rare stone, turning it over carefully in her mind. When the hour grew late, Myra stood. "Thank you," she said. "I begin to see the fire in your words. You speak not only with your tongue but with your heart. I will come again." She left, and Aaron remained seated, staring at the glowing screens. He felt a strange warmth inside him. For the first time in his life, someone had looked to him for knowledge beyond machines. Myra, an envoy of her people, wanted his voice. It was both heavy and uplifting. The next day, whispers spread again through the station. Aaron noticed more eyes following him in the halls. Some humans looked curious, others suspicious. A pair of officers passed him and muttered that he was spending too much time with the alien envoy. Aaron tried to ignore them, but the weight of their words pressed on him. That evening, Myra returned once more. This time she met him in the observation deck, where wide windows showed the endless stars and the curve of the planet below. The room was quiet, filled with silver light. "Tell me about compliments," Myra said as they stood side by side. "When you said I looked hot, it caused a reaction. What do such words mean among your people?" Aaron's chest tightened. The memory still made him uneasy. He took a breath. "Compliments are words we use to show respect or admiration. Sometimes about looks, sometimes about skills. But they must be given with care, or they sound false." Myra turned her eyes to him. "So when you said those words, you did not mean admiration?" "No," Aaron admitted. "I meant you looked warm under the lights." But the words came out wrong. Myra studied him, then gave a calm nod. "Even so, they reached me as truth. Perhaps that is why I smiled." Aaron did not know what to say. He watched the stars instead, their cold brilliance stretching without end. Myra continued. "Among my people, words are chosen with great weight. To give a compliment is to bind oneself to it. That is why many of my kind thought your words strange. But I see now that humans live with lighter tongues, yet their hearts burn strong. I wish to learn more of this balance." Aaron turned to her, surprised by her openness. "And I will help you. If you wish, I will teach you every human way I know." Myra's lips curved into another smile, small yet clear. "Then we will build a bridge of words between our people." In that moment, Aaron understood the path opening before them. What had begun as a mistake was becoming something larger. A new bond, fragile yet powerful, was forming not only between him and Myra but between their entire species. He did not yet know where that path would lead. But as the stars shone cold and distant, Aaron felt warmth inside, a warmth born not from machines or lights but from trust, honesty, and the courage to speak. Life on the station did not remain quiet for long. Whispers of Aaron's strange friendship with Myra began to spread beyond the mess hall and the repair rooms. The story of the hot remark was told again and again, each time with small changes, until it reached nearly everyone on the station. Some laughed at it. Others frowned. And a few, both human and alien, began to wonder if the moment meant something more than a careless slip. Myra did not hide her interest. She visited Aaron often, sometimes in the observation deck, sometimes in the storage rooms, and sometimes even in the busy mess hall. Wherever she appeared, heads turned. People watched them closely. Aaron felt the pressure of so many eyes, but Myra walked without fear, her tall figure calm, her robe shifting softly with every step. One evening, Myra asked Aaron to join her in the central chamber. Delegates from both sides had gathered to discuss trade routes and defense. Aaron was nervous. He was only a technician, not part of diplomacy, but Myra insisted he sit with her. When they entered together, the chamber grew quiet. Myra began speaking to her people in her flowing language. The sound was smooth and layered, like wind through trees. Then she turned to Aaron and said in clear human speech, "Tell them how humans use words." Aaron froze. He looked at the rows of alien eyes staring at him and the human officers sitting stiffly in their chairs. His palms felt damp. But Myra's steady gaze gave him courage. He cleared his throat. Humans use words in many ways. Sometimes we speak directly. Sometimes we use humor. And sometimes we say things by accident, but even accidents can show truth. The room murmured with voices. Some of the alien delegates frowned, but others leaned forward with interest. One of them asked, "Do humans often reveal truth without planning it?" Aaron nodded. Yes. We are not always careful. But our mistakes can carry honesty. That is part of what makes us who we are. The chamber filled with soft discussion. Myra's people debated in low tones, while the humans exchanged glances. Aaron felt his heart pounding, but Myra smiled. She placed a hand over her chest, a gesture of respect among her kind, and said, "This is why I trust his words. Even in mistake, there is fire." The officers shifted uncomfortably, but they could not deny the effect. The delegates seemed to be listening with new attention. Aaron realized Myra was using his simple presence as proof of human honesty. It startled him, yet at the same time, he felt proud. After the meeting, a young human officer approached him in the corridor. "What are you doing, Aaron? You are giving them the idea that every mistake is wisdom. Be careful. Words can shape politics." Aaron lowered his eyes. "I did not ask for this. I am only trying to explain." The officer shook his head. "Maybe you did not ask, but now you are part of it. Watch yourself." The warning stayed with Aaron, but so did Myra's words. She saw strength in his honesty, and he could not ignore that. Days passed, and something unexpected began to happen. The aliens started testing human sayings. Aaron overheard them in the halls, trying to use new words they had learned. Sometimes they misused them, causing bursts of laughter from nearby humans. One envoy told a cook, "Your soup is hot with fire of truth," which left the cook blinking in confusion. But instead of anger, the mistakes brought smiles. People began to laugh together, even across species. Aaron saw it as a spark, small but real. A bridge was forming, built not from treaties or orders but from shared words and shared mistakes. Still, not everyone liked it. A group of alien officers grew restless. They believed Myra was lowering the dignity of their people by spending so much time with a simple human. They whispered among themselves that she was being fooled by careless tongues. On the human side, some officers muttered that Aaron was distracting the envoy from serious matters. One evening, Aaron sat with Myra in the observation deck again. The stars glowed cold outside the glass, and the planet turned slowly beneath them. "Do you see what has begun?" Myra asked softly. "They speak to each other with laughter now. That is your doing." Aaron shook his head. It was never my plan. I am only explaining. I never meant to be noticed. Myra smiled. Sometimes fire spreads even when no one plans it. Aaron looked at her, uncertain. But others are unhappy. They think we are wrong. Let them think, Myra said calmly. Change always begins with doubt. Her confidence amazed him. She walked through criticism as if it were air. Aaron wished he had that kind of strength, but he only nodded. The very next day, a new moment tested their growing bond. During a training session, a piece of equipment malfunctioned, nearly injuring one of the alien envoys. Aaron rushed forward and pulled the envoy back just in time. The alien was shaken but unharmed. The incident spread quickly through the station. And when others asked why Aaron had acted so fast, Myra answered clearly, because humans live with fire in their hearts. Even when afraid, they act. Those words carried through both crews. Humans felt pride swell within them. The aliens looked at Aaron differently, no longer just as a clumsy technician but as someone who had proven worth with action. Yet the unrest also grew stronger. Some alien officers now believed Myra was letting human influence grow too much. They began planning to confront her. At the same time, a few human officers warned Aaron again to be cautious, for his simple honesty was stirring waves he could not control. As the station circled the distant world, the spark of connection burned brighter. Jokes were exchanged across species, compliments were spoken, and mistakes were turned into moments of laughter. But behind the smiles, doubt and tension brewed. Some saw hope, while others saw danger. Aaron stood at the center of it all, unsure how a single slip of his tongue had brought him here. He only knew one truth. Myra had trusted him, and her bold response had changed everything. And now the fire was spreading far beyond their quiet talks. The research station had grown louder in recent weeks. Laughter sometimes filled the halls where silence once lived. Humans and aliens exchanged words in playful experiments, testing each other's languages. But while bridges of friendship were forming, shadows of doubt also spread. Not everyone believed this new closeness was good. Among the alien officers, discontent rose. They gathered in quiet rooms, their voices sharp and low. They said Myra had gone too far. They said she was losing dignity by speaking so freely with a human technician. A respected envoy should not laugh at clumsy words or share private talks with someone of lower rank. Their people valued order and respect. To them, Myra's behavior looked like weakness. On the human side, some officers also frowned. They feared Aaron's presence was giving the wrong impression. They whispered that he was no diplomat, no trained speaker, only a man with tools and lucky timing. If one careless word could spark connection, another careless word could break it. Aaron felt the weight of these whispers every day. He could hear the tone in the mess hall when he entered. He could feel the eyes on his back as he walked to his station. Some smiled at him with respect, but others looked at him as if he had stepped out of place. One evening, Aaron sat alone in his small cabin, staring at the ceiling. He thought about the warning words he had heard again and again. Maybe he should stop meeting Myra. Maybe it would be safer for everyone. But deep inside, he knew he could not. Something about her calm strength, her hunger for understanding, and her belief in honesty made him feel that his presence mattered. The very next day, a meeting was called in the central chamber. Delegates from both sides sat in their places. The air felt heavier than usual. Aaron was there as well, seated at the edge of the room at Myra's request. One alien officer stood tall, his voice firm. Our envoy risks the dignity of our people. She lowers herself by laughing at human mistakes. This is not our way. It is weakness. Myra rose calmly. Her eyes shone with steady fire. It is not weakness to understand. It is not weakness to see value in honesty. Humans have shown us something new. Their mistakes carry truth. Their words build bridges. Another officer snapped, "Bridges built on foolishness cannot stand." At that, Myra turned to Aaron. "Then let this human speak for himself. If his words are foolish, let us hear and judge them." Aaron's heart pounded. He had not expected to be drawn into this. Every eye turned to him, human and alien alike. His mouth felt dry, but he forced himself to stand. "I am no leader," Aaron said. "I am only a technician. I did not plan any of this." But when I spoke wrongly, Myra listened instead of turning away. And because she listened, we began to understand each other. That is not weakness. That is strength. If you think my words are foolish, then know this. Humans are often foolish. We stumble. We speak without planning. But we do not give up. We try again. That is what makes us strong. The chamber was silent for a long moment. The words hung in the air like a spark waiting to catch. Some alien officers scowled, but others seemed moved. A few even nodded slowly. Myra lifted her hand to her chest. "This is why I stand with him. Fire is born from stumbling stones. It lights the path." But not everyone was convinced. After the meeting, Aaron overheard alien officers whispering in anger. One said, "If she continues this way, she will lead us into chaos." Another said, "The human speaks too boldly. He must be silenced." Aaron felt a chill. He had not realized how deep the resentment had grown. Later that night, he met Myra in the observation deck. The stars stretched wide beyond the glass, cold and endless. Aaron spoke in a low voice. "They are angry. They say you are losing your place. They say I should be silenced." Myra stood tall, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Let them be angry. Truth does not need permission." "But what if they turn against you?" Aaron asked. She turned to face him, her expression calm but fierce. "Then I will stand. And if they turn against you, I will still stand. Do not fear their doubt. Fear silence, for silence kills more than words." Her courage struck him like a wave. He wished he had her strength, but at least he could share in it. He nodded slowly. "Then I will not be silent." Their bond grew stronger in that moment, yet the unrest did not fade. The next few days saw more small clashes. A group of alien officers scolded Myra openly in the hall, saying she had shamed them. She replied with calm dignity, refusing to back down. Some humans mocked Aaron behind his back, calling him the envoy's pet, but he ignored them. Still, the atmosphere grew tense. The laughter in the halls grew less frequent. Whispers replaced smiles. Both humans and aliens waited for something to break. And then the break came. During a training exercise in the lower decks, a malfunction spread through the power conduits. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and the smell of burning circuits filled the air. The malfunction spread faster than expected, threatening the safety of both human and alien crew. Aaron rushed toward the failing systems with his toolkit. Myra appeared beside him, her robe flowing as she moved with surprising speed. Together they faced the danger, sparks flying around them, alarms echoing through the deck. It was in that fire-lit chaos that the doubts of both crews would be tested. Aaron and Myra stood shoulder to shoulder, ready to prove that words were not their only strength. The alarm echoed through every corner of the station. Red lights flashed across the walls, and a deep voice repeated warnings. Power surge detected. Containment unstable. All crew report to safety stations. Aaron ran down the corridor with his toolkit bouncing against his side. His heart raced as the floor shook beneath his boots. He had repaired broken systems before, but this was no normal malfunction. The energy surging through the conduits could overload the reactors. If that happened, the station would tear itself apart. When he reached the lower decks, he found chaos. Sparks rained from the ceiling, and panels glowed dangerously. A group of human technicians struggled to shut down the systems, but the energy refused to stop. The conduits throbbed like veins filled with fire. Myra appeared through the smoke, her tall figure moving swiftly. Her robe was scorched at the edges, yet her face stayed calm. She joined Aaron without hesitation. "Where do we begin?" she asked. Aaron pointed to the glowing conduits. "The surge is spreading from here. If it reaches the main reactor, we will lose everything." The other technicians stepped back, fear in their eyes. Some whispered that it was too dangerous. But Aaron dropped to his knees and pulled open the panel. The heat blasted against his face, but he gritted his teeth. "We cannot wait. Help me." Myra knelt beside him. She studied the twisting wires and glowing circuits, her sharp eyes moving with speed. "Your system is unstable because the flow is fighting itself. My people use balance, not force. Guide me, and I will guide you." Together they worked. Aaron's hands moved with experience, pulling wires, locking connectors, and adjusting circuits. Myra used her slender fingers to weave glowing threads of alien energy that pulsed softly between the systems. At first, the currents clashed, but then they began to calm, as if human technology and alien energy found a rhythm together. The station shook again. Aaron heard the loud crack of a rupturing pipe. Smoke filled the corridor, making it hard to breathe. He coughed but kept going. Myra placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "Do not stop. Fire only grows brighter when the air grows thin." Her words pushed him forward. He forced his trembling hands to move faster. One mistake could end them, but he trusted her calm presence. At last, they reached the main conduit. It glowed so bright that it hurt to look at it. Aaron felt sweat dripping down his face. "This is it," he said. "If we do not fix this, the reactor will fail." Myra closed her eyes for a moment, as if listening to something deep within the hum of the energy. Then she spoke firmly. "We must release the pressure, not block it. Can you reroute the flow through the secondary lines?" Aaron thought quickly. It was dangerous, but it could work. "Yes, but only if I cut the main channel first. I will need time." "Then I will hold the flow," Myra said. Her hands glowed faintly as she pressed them against the conduit. The alien energy from her body blended with the human circuits, holding the surge in place. Sparks burst around her, but she did not move. Her face shone with determination. Aaron pulled his cutter from the kit and sliced into the thick cable. The heat roared like a wild beast. For a moment, the surge pushed harder, almost breaking free. But Myra held steady, her eyes closed, her breath deep. Aaron quickly connected the secondary lines, rerouting the power. With a final spark, the pressure dropped. The blaring alarms faded into silence. The red lights dimmed. The humming of the station returned to its steady rhythm. The crew around them let out cries of relief. Some clapped their hands against their chests, others shouted thanks. Aaron sat back against the wall, his arms trembling from exhaustion. Myra released the conduit and stood tall, her robe torn and her hands glowing faintly from the effort. "You did it," Aaron said, gasping for breath. "No," Myra replied. "We did it." Human fire and alien balance together. Word of their actions spread quickly through the station. By the time they returned to the upper decks, both humans and aliens gathered in the corridors. Some reached out to touch Aaron's shoulder with respect. Others bowed slightly to Myra. The whispers of doubt were gone, replaced by voices of admiration. One alien officer who had once spoken against them now stood before Myra. His expression was stern, but his voice carried respect. "Your choice to trust this human saved us." Perhaps his words are not weakness after all. Myra met his gaze calmly. "Words are only the beginning. Action proves the truth." Aaron felt pride swell inside him. For once, no one mocked him. No one called him foolish. They saw him as more than a technician. They saw him as someone who carried fire when it mattered. That night, Myra joined him again in the observation deck. The stars burned bright beyond the glass, and the curve of the planet glowed below. They stood side by side in silence for a long time. Finally, Aaron spoke. "I never thought I would stand in the center of all this. I never thought one mistake could lead here." Myra turned her calm eyes toward him. "Mistakes are not always weakness. Sometimes they are doors. You opened one, and together we stepped through it." Aaron nodded slowly. He felt the truth of her words deep in his chest. They had proven something that day, not only to the crew but to themselves. Humans and aliens could fight side by side, laugh together, and even survive disaster as one. As the stars stretched into the endless dark, Aaron realized that the path before them was no longer just about words. It was about trust, action, and the strength to face what came next. And he knew that whatever challenges awaited, he would not face them alone. Myra had chosen to stand with him, and together they carried a fire that could not be silenced. The days after the crisis changed everything on the station. The story of how Aaron and Myra saved the reactors spread like fire. Humans who once doubted him now greeted him with respect. Aliens who once whispered against Myra now lowered their heads when she passed. For the first time, both sides felt they had witnessed something greater than fear or pride. Meetings became different. Instead of endless arguments about culture and control, there were discussions about working together. Humans and aliens shared tools, methods, and even jokes. The station, once heavy with silence and suspicion, carried an air of hope. But with hope came new challenges. Leaders from both sides called for a council to decide the future of cooperation. Aaron was invited, though he still felt strange sitting at a table where commanders and envoys gathered. He looked around at their serious faces and wondered if he truly belonged there. Myra noticed his unease and spoke quietly to him. "Do not forget, fire belongs in the hearth as much as in the forge. You have earned your place." The council began with voices both eager and doubtful. A human commander stood and said, "We saw unity when Aaron and Myra fought side by side. But can we expect this unity to last? Cultures are not changed by one event." An alien officer replied, "Cultures are not changed by one event, but they can be guided by it." What we saw was proof of possibility. Proof is a seed. Seeds grow if we allow them. The debate went on for hours. Some wanted bold agreements, others wanted caution. Through it all, Aaron stayed silent, unsure if his words mattered here. But when the arguments began circling with no clear direction, Myra looked straight at him. Her gaze told him it was his turn. Aaron stood slowly. His hands shook, but he forced his voice to stay steady. You all know I never meant to be here. I am not a leader or a soldier. I made a mistake with my words, and from that mistake came understanding. When the reactors failed, I only did what I knew. But Myra stood beside me, and together we saved the station. That was not human strength alone. That was not alien balance alone. That was both. If we can join fire and balance in a single moment of danger, why not in a life of peace? The chamber grew quiet. For a long moment no one spoke. Then a human commander leaned forward and said, "Perhaps the technician is right. Perhaps we are blind if we do not see what stands before us." Slowly, agreement spread. One by one, officers from both sides voiced support for a new path. They would form a joint council, not just to share the station but to guide both peoples toward deeper cooperation. The decision was not the end of the struggle, but it was a beginning. After the council, Myra and Aaron walked together through the wide halls. The station felt alive, humming with new energy. Crew members of both kinds passed them with nods of respect. For the first time, Aaron felt the weight of fear lift from his shoulders. "Do you see what has begun?" Myra asked as they reached the observation deck. Aaron looked out at the stars. They stretched wide and endless, yet they no longer felt cold. "Yes," he said softly. "It feels like the start of something larger than us." Myra folded her hands behind her back. "When you spoke those words to me in the training hall, you thought them careless. Yet they carried a spark. Sometimes the smallest spark lights a fire strong enough to guide a world." Aaron chuckled quietly. "And sometimes that spark nearly burns everything down. But I am glad it did not." For a while they stood in silence, watching the stars drift. But Aaron's mind kept turning. He thought about the whispers that had once followed him, the laughter, the doubt. He thought about the night he nearly decided to step away. And he thought about the moment Myra told him not to fear words, but silence. "Do you think this will last?" he asked finally. Myra's eyes stayed on the stars. "Nothing lasts without care. But if humans and my people choose to guard this fire together, it will grow. If we turn away, it will fade. The choice belongs to all of us." Her words sank deep into him. He realized then that the story was not about him alone. It was about every hand willing to build, every voice willing to speak, and every heart willing to trust. Days turned into weeks. The station became a place of shared learning. Humans taught aliens about engines, circuits, and raw endurance. Aliens taught humans about balance, energy flow, and patience. Aaron often found himself in the middle, helping both sides understand each other. It was not always easy. There were still arguments, still mistakes, but now they were faced with laughter instead of anger. One evening, Aaron and Myra returned to the training hall where it all began. The room was quiet, the mat still laid out across the floor. Aaron looked around and smiled. "Strange. This place feels smaller now." Myra raised an eyebrow. "Places do not shrink. Only our vision grows." Aaron laughed softly. "Then I suppose my vision has grown a lot." He remembered the day he called her hot, how embarrassed he had been, how certain he was that he had ruined everything. Yet here they stood, stronger than ever. It was almost too much to believe. Myra stepped closer, her calm voice carrying warmth. "Do not forget, Aaron. Your mistake was not the end. It was the beginning. You gave me honesty, and I gave you trust. Together we built something no one expected. Aaron met her gaze and nodded. Then let us keep building. They left the hall side by side, walking into a future that was no longer shaped by fear but by choice. The stars beyond the station burned bright, not as cold points of light but as endless paths waiting to be taken. Humanity had found its voice among the stars, and it had begun with one careless word, one bold response, and the courage to stand together. And though Aaron still felt like a simple technician at heart, he now knew the truth. Sometimes humanity did not need perfect heroes. Sometimes it only needed someone willing to stumble, to speak, to try again. That was what made them human. That was what gave them strength. As the station sailed through the vast dark, carrying both humans and aliens toward a shared destiny, Aaron and Myra stood as proof of what could be born from one moment of truth. A spark had become a flame, and that flame would light the way forward.